Bonjour. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 12 minutes about women in the boardroom. My name is Mirjam. I'm CEO of AXA in Luxembourg. I'm calling from Luxembourg this morning, and I'm actually CEO of AXA Insurance in Luxembourg and AXA Wealth Europe. Now, as I am an executive of AXA, which is one of the biggest global insurer, I do have some slides. You know exactly top executives can't do without slides. So forgive me, but I prepared some slides and I would like to share my 5 cents about women in the boardroom. Now, if we speak about women in the boardroom, did you know that over the last 20 months of global crisis, a global health crisis, the number of women that drop out of their career is increasing. And the number of women that actually manage the most important companies, speak about the Fortune 500, the S&P 500 CEOs, they're actually declining. If you want to know how many women are managing these companies, it's less than 5%. It's 4.8%, and it's on the decrease. So what is the problem? What's happening? It's absolutely contradictory to all the endeavors in diversity, in developing women, in building the female talent pipeline. I want to speak to you as someone who made a career in financial markets, as someone who lived in 8 countries, and over time, as someone who had certain moments of doubts. But I can assure you that certainly the problem is not only with us, but to some extent, it's also with us as a woman. I had my moments as the only female in the boardroom, and I can share with you that I have been in executive boards for over 10 years, and I'm right now in 2 executive boards and 6 board of directors, and over 80% are male. When we speak about the colleagues in these committees, and I had my moments. So many times I have been the only woman in the boardroom. But having that moment was also fueled by a small story I need to tell you, which is that about 5 years ago, I was asked for an interview, and a journalist took the time to speak to me over 2 hours, troubleshooting how come that I made it to the top, and how come I am the only woman in the boardroom. And during that interview, something decisive happened. I made a decision for my career, and I made a decision for my professional life as a woman in financial services. And what happened is that during the interview, a feeling was creeping up, which was somehow I'm a rare species. Somehow, by just asking questions like, what's wrong? And questions like, who's cooking at night? How do you handle childcare? How do you manage to have such a job and a private life at the same time? By asking these type of questions, I realized that it's actually not to my favor. It's not going to help me in my career, and it's actually stereotyping and stigmatizing me even more. I'm like a rare species in a zoo being visited and observed. So I got really tired of diversity, tired of development programs focusing on women, trying to solve the issue. And I told myself, possibly it makes sense to renounce to such programs, and as a woman, to not be recognized for being female, but as a female CEO, to be recognized for your results, your drive, your passion, the followership you're creating in your organization, the positive energy, and once again, your results. And that these are 5 cents of my small experience that is decisive for the career in the following 5 years after that interview, where I decided that diversity is probably not the topic I will reinforce and expose myself to, but I will settle on other notions that are going beyond being female CEO or female executive. Because the more I supplement the stereotype, the more I become part of the problem. Now, I know this is uncomfortable for some of you because diversity and inclusion is an important strategic topic to most companies, but this is the conclusion of someone like me being in the front line, being the only one in the boardroom, and being the one that actually doesn't want to be judged by being female, but wants to be judged by being a leader or simply by being Mirjam. So what's the alternative? How do we manage? How do we manage as the only woman in the boardroom? And what could be some rules of the game? Certainly, I asked myself the question, and I chose to go back. I chose to go back to go into the future. What do I mean by going back? I tried to tackle the problem differently. I took it from the old, backwards-oriented, traditional concepts of ego, territory, authority. These are concepts you might have heard of, which are marking careers of generations, and they're also stigmatizing the male professional paths, not only the female. But effectively, these are concepts which help me to define what is my position as a leader in the boardroom, independent of being a woman or a man. It doesn't matter. And what is the stance I want to take? Now, let's take ego. If you make a corporate career in a large enterprise, such as AXA with 160,000 employees, you need to think about how much ego do you want to put onto the table and how much ego does it need to make a career? Now, ego is a good thing. It's about self-esteem. It's about making your way. It's about being ambitious, having drive, but also taking a firm stance when it's needed. But ego can be toxic. And ego is reinforcing and self-reinforcing itself over the course of your career and the higher you get. And there's a stigma about corporates where the ego at the top level is the highest. I want to break that stigma, and I want to pave the way as a leader, and I'm purposefully not saying as a female leader, as a leader, to say that ego is to be used in doses. It's a good thing, but you need to be very conscious on how much ego you let to creep in and you let to be part of the boardroom. There's a far more important rule in a boardroom, which I realized only after a couple of years. And I hoped, and I wish somebody would have told me earlier, but in a boardroom, there is no fairness. There is no fair and unfair. And if I go into a notion of having an equal stance, having equity in a boardroom, having equal share of voice, having an equal contribution, it becomes very quickly a very difficult result to achieve, because effectively a boardroom is full of a bunch of people with feelings, sometimes irrational reactions. And the difference you're making is measured not by being a woman and being the only one. The difference you're making is about the fair share you're taking. And that's a decision you need to be extremely conscious about. And to make the link with ego, a fair share doesn't mean you're the first one to speak and you're the only one to speak. A fair share doesn't mean your ego is imposing you for being the first one and the most important one in the room. But a fair share is about choosing wisely and choosing specifically the moments where you want to have a contribution and where you want to have an impact. And here comes the second rule. And that works for me perfectly, which is about when you know exactly what is your fair share in the boardroom, independent of being a woman or a man, think about, do you fight your territory and you fight for your share, or do you build common ground? And that's a huge difference. There are small, very unnoticeable differences in how you phrase your point of view. There are small, very important differences on how you build on the ideas of your colleagues in the boardroom. Am I a true believer that my impact in a boardroom is about building common ground? And it's certainly not about fighting territory. And once again, this is about breaking with rules of the past and breaking with notions that had been also very much linked to male boardroom behavior. So choose your battles, fight your territory or build common ground. I chose my battle to build common ground, and that's my compass. And thirdly, that's the third rule. Think about authority in a boardroom. Do you want to accumulate it? Do you measure your self-esteem by how much authority you have? Or do you measure your self-esteem on how much authority you distribute? Do you empower, or are you actually trying to get more power? These are very traditional concepts, but just breaking traditions will help you to define what's your impact and future. And it does give purpose in a sense that you're not building your self-esteem on being a female in a boardroom. You're not building your self-esteem on being the only one, a minority. And as such, it's a risk of being either a victim because you feel like you're the only one, or a rebellion because you feel like you need to work twice as hard to come as far as others. But you build your self-esteem and your ego on something that I believe is far more important and goes beyond gender. It's about building fair share, common ground, and it's, for me, about distributing authority. Now, is that easy? No. Is that giving me purpose? Yes. Does it work out all the times? No. But as long as I'm in a context, and here I'm speaking also as a female leader, as long as I'm in a context where I'm able to do this, where I can use this compass every day I go to the office and I still feel I'm in the right place, as long as this is possible at AXA, I actually think everyone has equal chances, and there is very much diversity in the boardroom. So key message, choose your battles wisely and fight the right battles, especially if you are a female executive in the boardroom, and especially if you are a minority and you're the only one. And what it takes, and we heard it just before in the contribution, it certainly takes hard work and resilience. It doesn't come overnight. And sometimes it takes an awkward interview with a journalist who's asking rather stupid questions for you to realize it's not helping you and you need to pave your own way. These are my 5 cents. And I want to give hope to every young lady that wants to make a career in a large corporate. I want to inspire that this is possible, and it is possible by staying 100% true to yourself. Thank you.